Welcome back to Living Pardes. During our last video, we looked at the misconceptions around the birth year of Yeshua, or Jesus. We looked at the traditional but modern belief of historians that Yeshua was born before 4 BCE. We also dealt with the problematic birth narrative in Luke, which would necessitate that Yeshua was born after 6 CE. In the end, we observed that due to past translation problems within the writings of Josephus, once they were corrected, a better picture of when Yeshua was born developed. This was further solidified in a second witness within the scriptures, which demonstrated that Yeshua's ministry started around 27 CE, when he was about 30 years old, providing a second witness of the probable birth year of between 3 and 2 BCE, which lines up with the writings of many of the pre-Nicene church fathers, or those church fathers before 325 CE. Yet, in providing the second and third witness to this probable birth year, I did not provide a second witness demonstrating the start of his ministry. In fact, one may argue that his ministry did not start in 27 CE, based on other scriptures. With this being said, I would like to demonstrate that the scriptures which many historians use to challenge the 27 CE beginning of Messiah's ministry actually prove that Yeshua did start his ministry in 27 CE. So as we proceed, we will first look at the text which most historians and theologians use to discredit the 27 CE arrival of Yeshua into his ministry. We find that in Luke chapter 3, verse 1, it states that his ministry started in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, when Pontius Pilate was governor of Judea and Herod was tetrarch of Galilee. Historians rightly believe that Tiberius Caesar began to rule the Roman Empire after the death of Caesar Augustus, which occurred in 14 CE. They then calculate that if Yeshua started his ministry in the 15th year of Tiberius's rule over the Roman Empire, then 14 AD plus 15 years places the beginning of Yeshua's ministry in 29 CE. This leads many to believe that if Yeshua's ministry lasted about 3 to 3.5 years, then he would have died around 32 or 33 CE. When taught this way, it would seem apparent that what was demonstrated in our last video was off by about 2 years. However, there is a flaw with this argument. You see, it states that Yeshua's ministry began in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, when Pontius Pilate was governor of Judea. The error that we find becomes evident through the second part of the verse. This is because it focuses upon the land of Judea, Judea being one of the provinces of the Roman Empire. Accordingly, we find that Pontius Pilate began governing the land of Judea around 26 to 27 CE. If we then focus only on the land of Judea, we find that Tiberius Caesar began reigning in the province of Judea prior to him becoming the ruler of the entire Roman Empire in 14 CE. In other words, according to history, Tiberius Caesar became co-regent with Caesar Augustus prior to the death of Augustus. In fact, he began ruling the provinces 2 years prior to replacing Augustus in 14 CE. The ancient biographer named Gaius Suetonius Tranquillus wrote about the lives of the Caesars, and he wrote that after a 2-year period in Germania, which lasted from 10 to about 12 CE, Tiberius returned and celebrated the triumph which he had postponed, accompanied by his generals, for whom had obtained the triumphal regalia. And before turning to enter the capital, he dismounted from his chariot and fell at the knees of his father, who was presiding over the ceremonies. The councils then caused a law to be passed soon after this, that he should govern the provinces jointly with Augustus and hold the census with him, and set out for Illyricum on the conclusion of the lustral ceremonies. According to Suetonius, these ceremonies and the declaration of his co-regency took place in 12 CE, after Tiberius returned from Germania. With Judea being a province, Tiberius Caesar started reigning in Judea as a co-regency with Caesar Augustus around 12 CE. At the same time, Pontius Pilate began reigning as governor of Judea around 26 or 27 CE, demonstrating that the scripture is still being consistent by Tiberius Caesar beginning his rule in 12 CE. If we then take 12 CE and we add the 15 years, we again arrive at 27 CE. With Luke being one that is writing from the perspective of someone living within the province, then Luke would see Tiberius Caesar beginning his reign as a co-regent, controlling the provinces in 12 CE. Another clue to this is demonstrated in the next verse of Luke chapter 3, verse 2. It states that Yeshua's ministry started during the high priesthood of Annas and Caiaphas. You see, according to records, Annas had been high priest from the period of 6 to 15 CE. Around 15 CE, he was deposed by the Romans and was replaced by various members of his family. Eventually, his son-in-law Caiaphas became high priest from around 18 to 36 CE. Yet again, Luke is viewing this from the perspective of someone living in Judea. Though Annas was not reigning, he was still part of the family and was held in or sitting in a position with Caiaphas in the eyes of the Jews. In other words, though Annas was not in an official position of power in the eyes of the Romans, the Jews still considered him the rightful leader. Thus, he was still in power through and with his son-in-law Caiaphas, somewhat like another co-regency situation. Annas was not in power, but seen as in power with Caiaphas. Just as Tiberius was a son of Augustus, he was reigning in the province of Judea with his father Augustus. Now the early church father named Quintus Septimus Florens Tertullianus, or Tertullian for short, who lived around 155 to 220 CE, was from Carthage, and he wrote in his work named Against Marcion that the Lord had been revealed since the 12th year of Tiberius Caesar. Being someone who lived outside of Judea, Tertullian would be writing from the perspective of the Roman Empire, and he would be viewing the reign of Tiberius Caesar as beginning in 14 CE. So when he states that Yeshua began his ministry in the 12th year of Tiberius Caesar, he was calculating it from his reign as emperor in 14 CE. When we add together 14 CE plus the 12 years, we find that it falls around 26 CE, which is much closer to 27 CE than it is to 29 CE. Thereby also giving us another witness of Yeshua starting his ministry around 26 or 27 CE. If we then calculate that Yeshua was about 30 years old when he began his ministry, we then see that from 27 CE minus 30 years, it again brings us to 3 BCE, which we observed in our previous video. With this, we find a second witness to Yeshua starting his ministry in 27 CE, and a further witness to his birth occurring around 3 BCE. If Yeshua ministered for about 3 to 3.5 years, his death and resurrection would have occurred in 30 CE. With these dates being made clear, we can now find whether ancient prophecy further confirms these dates. If you would like to find out how the ancient prophecies were fulfilled by these dates, please subscribe to this channel, as new videos are put out about every 2 weeks. Thank you and be blessed.